Hi everyone, I'm Susan from Worldpeacefull, and I felt inspired today to talk about peace, given that there is so much discord in the world. But first, I think the best place to start is to actually become still. So let's do some what's called breath work first. This is very important even before you make decisions about anything in your life. Even when you're evaluating what's going on in the world, if you can get into a habit of doing some breathing first, it'll help you with clarity, it'll help you with slowing your mind, and then you can look through the prism of peace when you're looking at world events, family events, personal events. It'll give you a much deeper insight. So let's start. First things first is to breathe in and breathe out. Breathe in and breathe out. Breathe in, breathe out. What you're actually doing is connecting to what's natural within you, which is to breathe. You don't have to think about breathing. It just happens automatically. So you're in effect, you're not doing the breathing. This is the universal rhythm that you're actually connecting to. And it's a very, very peaceful rhythm. So going to the subject of peace, we all seem to be having a lot of trouble with peace these days, particularly in Western societies, but I have noticed in my travels around the world, increasingly more and more people are feeling discord as more and more worries come into their lives around money, materialism, family. So many people are saying that they want peace, but they're not really doing a great deal to connect to it. Some might do a bit of meditation and prayer. Some might take holidays to find it. But in actual fact, the peace is actually inside you. And really, nothing can give you peace. You can only be peace and look out at the world from there. So how do I bring peace into my life? I don't have a television is the first thing. Many years ago, I used to believe that I needed to be informed. So I used to watch the television, used to listen to the news diligently. I can remember reading the newspaper from cover to cover, then talking to people about it. I enjoyed knowing what was going on. But as I've come to see, having been in the media myself, is that really it's a prism through which those in the media are viewing the world on the basis of press releases, on the basis of dramatic events that are happening, on the basis of business ratings. But coming from even my market research background, which was really about random samples of the community, getting a snapshot across many voices, I learned from that nobody is doing a representative sample in the media of what is actually going on in the world. Now, if I was to hazard a guess, and probably tapping into my experience traveling the world, I would say the world is actually a very beautiful, peaceful place, in truth. If we focus on the negative and we keep bringing the negative to light, we create, wittingly or unwittingly, a consciousness of fear around the planet. People believe that these events are imminent in their own lives because the television's beaming into their home, into their car, into their headphones, and it's repeated over and over, which is what would be called operant conditioning. And if you hear it enough times, you're going to believe that it's real. Now, I put to you that the only thing that is real is what's happening right now. As we move from the moment, which is actually not possible, but let's imagine that we can, if we move into the future in our imagination or into the past in our imagination, what's really happening is we're living in our imagination. Now, fear is incredibly powerful in the sense that our sense of survival is threatened. That's why the fear is there. When it's natural, it's really just an energy which moves you away from a perceived danger that could damage you. When it's psychological, it's something that's in your mind that may not have happened to you ever, but it forms your worldview because everybody is saying that this is so, that this is fearful, that this is bad, therefore it must be true. Now, what I learned when I went to university was to critically think. That means to question everything. I'd say the great thing about university is that it made me search for references to verify my belief that I was arguing for in a paper. It made me look at the sources of information that I investigated. Were they government? Were they sources with a vested interest? Were they opinions? Were they based on evidence? Was that evidence appropriately sampled? Or was it basing its viewpoints on a few people's voices and calling that this is what everybody thinks, this is a fact? So from that background, it's made me have a discernment around any information that comes into my reality. If I'm looking into the media or even looking into books, whatever I'm looking at, searching the net, I'm very careful where I draw my conclusions from. And in fact, what I do these days, now that I've had many, many years working with peace, is I ask myself, is this statement divisive? Or is this statement unifying? And what I mean by that is, will it divide people for and against? Or will it bring people together to solve a problem? Now, when it's unity-based, I know it's coming from an energy of love. I trust that. When it's fear-based, it will always obviously be coming from an energy of fear and anger, and it will look to blame the other. It will look to cast a shadow over the other. Now that leads me to talk a little bit about fear. Fear is a really, really interesting energy, and it is an energy because you can feel it within yourself. If you close your eyes and you think of a very fearful event on television, it becomes frightening. You see people blown up, or you see really atrocious things happening. You feel a gut-wrenching reaction in your stomach. Now, it's not happening to you. It's happening because a fear response has been stimulated and you're psychologically feeling fear and feeling a threat. And it is an energy. And that energy can change your behaviour quite significantly. Now, the energy of love is a completely different energy. Just think about looking into the eyes of your child, looking into the eyes of your friend, looking at your parents, looking at those people you really love, and then feeling the energy around that. You feel safe, you feel loved, you feel wanted, you feel accepted for who you are, you feel happy. Now, in order to connect to this energy, you have to make a decision in your life. Are you going to fill your mind with all the things that are fearful and keep programming your mind to be afraid? And what that does in truth is shut you down. It shuts you down from trying new things. It stops you from traveling the world because it's too dangerous. Something could happen on the plane. It stops you from walking at night because someone might attack you. It actually stops you from living your life fully, which is your purpose here, is to really live your dreams and to really do what makes you happy. That's actually your purpose, is to be happy. So you have to change your thinking if you want to be happy. And you start to question the world around you, but in a nice way. You know, you're not going to question and condemn those who think differently. That's okay. They can think what they want. They can follow what they want. They're free too. Everyone must walk their path. But what I mean is to change your thinking is to start to see things in a different way. Now, what I'm starting to do, if I ever feel fear, you know, is I allow that emotion to pass through me, but I know that it's not true, because I know that all fear is illusionary. And what I mean by that is we fear many, many things in the world, but if we're coming from a perspective of, you could even say eternal life, you could, that everything lives on, or if you come from a perspective of life happens as it happens, it is what it is, you can't avoid life, whatever's going to happen, there's going to be a lesson in it for you. And this is a really good one. All those people who you would call your enemy are actually your teacher. Now, I want you just to feel the energy around the word enemy, and then imagine looking at an enemy. Then I want you to change that to teacher, and then look at the other who is the teacher and say, well, what am I learning from this experience? Now, if that perceived enemy is someone who is violent, is someone who seems to be creating great destruction, very threatening, if you look at them as a teacher, you will start to say, well, okay, what do I learn from that? I learn that people are using violence in order to make others do what they want. People are using violence in the belief that their way is the only way. This is a very narrow way of thinking. How can they know that their way is the only way? How can they know that it is the one true way? How can they know that it benefits everyone if they all follow it? How do they know? Is it true? If it creates great pain and misery for those who don't subscribe to that, well, is that coming from a space of fear, or is that coming from a space of love? And of course, love has created everything. Everything comes from love. And what I mean by that is that this is an energy that unifies. This is an energy that expands. Love is not just a romantic term or a feeling in a moment. It's actually all life is connected, and all life has a loving energy running through it, which is growth. So the way we think literally changes what we see. And one thing I wanted to really get across was the shadow that moves across your mind. Now, I'm really witnessing that shadow in my own mind whenever I sit in judgment of anyone. It's becoming for me very, very obvious that it's a little shadow that just passes over my thoughts, and it colours what I see in the other person. Now, thankfully for me, I'm awake enough to see that that's mine and they actually are innocent. And it is changing the way I see people for sure. I'm starting to see them without a story, my story, and that's called projection. Now, a lot of people are not taught about projection, and it's so subtle that you really believe what you are seeing is true, but it's not. It's your projection. It's like if you can imagine a movie theatre and a camera. Now, your mind is the camera, and the theatre, the screen, is your thoughts being projected onto another person. Your thoughts are projected. So if I see someone as, say, successful, let's say I'm a poor person and I see someone as successful, lots of money, I might project that they're rich, they're spoiled, they think they're better than me. This would be a projection. The person has simply just walked past you. They've said and done nothing. So we know for sure that's projection. Or it could be the other way around. A person who's done very well in life walks past someone on the street who's begging and they go, what a loser, he should get a job, you know, he's not helping himself, why should I help him? And yet in truth, all that's happened is this person has walked past someone sitting on the street asking for money. That person may be on drugs. That person could be deeply depressed and unable to help themselves. They could have lost their family. They could think that they're not good enough for anything but the street. They may not know any differently. They may not see themselves any differently. There could be a whole myriad of reasons why that situation is occurring. But when you project onto them a negative perception, that squarely belongs with you. And that's judgment. And it's a poison and a toxin in our society. It's what shuts everybody down. When people are being judged in one way or another, the world contracts somewhat. But when we come at things with an energy of love, we see a person sitting on the street and then we simply go into ourselves and do we feel the desire to give the money to the person, but without a story. They may sit on the street, I may give them something, I may not, and either way is fine. It's all good as long as it's coming from an energy of love. Then you know you're in alignment with your truth, with your true self, because love is who we are actually. It really is. You look at children, how they act spontaneously loving. It's definitely human nature to be loving. People say, and there have been very, interesting arguments around the fact that people believe that we are violent naturally. Well, yes, we do have moments where we don't cope and we project our inner unhappiness onto others physically or verbally in some way. Yes, that is a human emotion moving through a human being. But in actual fact, our true nature is loving because it feels good. And when it feels good, you can be sure you're in alignment with truth. If it's not feeling good, you're in a lie. And this is really the truth about peace. When you feel peace inside yourself, you're actually feeling a sense of self-acceptance with yourself. You've made peace with you. And that's where world peace starts. It can never be forced upon anyone to do things your way in order to have a peaceful society. You cannot force peace. You can only learn the foundations of peace through universal values and a deep exploration of your own self. Aristotle, Plato, various philosophers stated the truth will set you free, stated know thyself and be true. These are not empty platitudes. You can only know yourself when you stop being busy, you reflect, you no longer react but respond to what's happening around you. You look at it with great curiosity because life has given you an experience. You have a choice with that. You can either react negatively towards that experience or you can accept it lovingly. That doesn't mean you condone it if it's a negative act. It just means that you don't share or decide to join in the negativity that others are engaged in. This is what real strength and power is. Power has nothing to do with violence, control, wealth, or even how a person looks. The greatest power on this planet comes from love, and that is within every human being, no matter their face, their shape, their size, no matter what. Each contains that spark of love within them, and that is truly the greatness of them. And when you start to see differently, you stop looking at the faces and you start feeling the heart of another human being. And when you feel the heart of another human being, that's when you see beauty. And I know that, having worked as a clown, that's probably where I've seen love the most, is working as a clown and giving love freely to everybody. And I just saw incredible beauty around me. So I'll conclude this video by saying, what you see in the world is your idea about it. Nothing more, nothing less. If you want world peace, then start looking for it in you. When you start to feel the peace within you, you look at the faces in a completely different light, and you will see the beauty in the world. If you keep feeding yourself with negative images, with violent games, for those kids who play them, if you keep doing that in videos, you're actually conditioning your thought along the lines of a fearful world. Now, over time, if you keep thinking in this way, you will attract the very things that you are afraid of. But, you know, it takes time. You'd have to really give it a lot of thought. That's called the law of attraction, and I'll talk about that in another video. So, the world is a reflection of us. Now I ask you to go away, look in the mirror, start to observe your thinking, and that will provide you with many answers as to why the world is the way it is. I send you lots of peace and love. If you want to check out my website, which has come from love, www.worldpeacefull, and that's worldpeacefull.com. And I look forward to hearing from you. Thanks. Bye.